Hi everyone, it's Rman here, and today I will be analyzing and predicting how OP is mythic Heimdallr in this current meta. And I will discuss how good I think her main effect Foresight Snare is, how I think she will affect different game modes like AR and SD, and rank her based on her predicted performance. And of course I will leave my other thoughts of the banner at the end of the video. So let's start by talking about Foresight Snare. So Foresight Snare is the main gimmick of mythic Heimdallr, and it brutally stops foes' first combat attempt under the right conditions, and inflicts isolation and no counter on that foe afterwards, so you're not allowed to save that foe who initiated combat and got stopped by Foresight Snare by ally assist skills like reposition, swap, drawback, etc. Only shadow shift skills can save them. And it is definitely strong, but I don't think it is the end of the world. As long as you understand when it triggers, you should have no problem countering it. As such, it is essential that we talk about its trigger conditions, and I also plan to make a short video explaining Foresight Snare by showcasing its interactions with gameplay footage and explanations so that you can understand better, but I'll leave that video soon. I'll try to make that video as soon as possible after this video. So Foresight Snare triggers, basically there are four main things you need to know about Foresight Snare. So first is that Foresight Snare triggers only if the foe's attack was the first combat in that phase. So if anyone else entered into combat before, then even though Foresight Snare, the status is still on one of your allies, it will not trigger. It is as good as having no effects. But because you still have that bonus status, then it will count as you having a bonus status, but it doesn't have any effect. You just have a bonus status. And in some cases, for example, a lot of heroes have true damage based on how many bonus effects you have when you enter combat, and Foresight Snare will definitely be counted as one bonus status, even though it is not the first combat. But Foresight Snare will still not trigger its effect, so keep that in mind. And also, Foresight Snare on a savior will not carry over to the allies that the savior is saving. So what does this mean? So this means that if a savior has Foresight Snare, and if a foe attacks another ally without Foresight Snare, and the savior effect triggers. So the savior has Foresight Snare, right? So you would think that Foresight Snare would trigger even though it's the first, let's just say it's the first combat. It fits the first condition. It's the first combat in any phase, in that enemy phase. So you would think that the Foresight Snare on the savior would trigger, but no, it does not. So your savior will trigger, of course. Your savior effect is not affected, but when your savior triggers their savior effect, the Foresight Snare does nothing. So the enemy who initiated combat will still continue on with their combat, and if they can kill your savior, then they will defeat your savior, and if they cannot, then yeah, your savior. So normal savior interactions. So you need to keep that in mind. However, if the ally has Foresight Snare and that ally is protected by savior, but this time the foe attacks your ally with the Foresight Snare. So even though it is protected, it's technically protected by a savior who does not have Foresight Snare. If you attack someone who has the Foresight Snare effect, it will count as it will trigger if it is the first combat in that phase. So it depends on who you're attacking. It doesn't matter whether that ally or any enemy is protected by savior or not. It only depends on the ally. No, not ally. On the enemy you're trying to initiate combat with. And if the enemy you're trying to initiate combat with has Foresight Snare, then it can trigger. If he or she does not have Foresight Snare, then it will never trigger. period. It will never trigger for someone else. So Foresight Snare on someone else will not trigger for another ally. So Foresight Snare on saviors will not carry over to any other allies. Keep that in mind. That's the second thing you need to remember. And by talking, I don't think you quite understand everything, but I'll try to make a video where I showcase this with real gameplay so that you can understand a little bit better in the future. So I hope to make that video as soon as possible after this one. But just try and understand this by listening to the words that I say first. I hope you can understand. If you can summon mythic Heimdallr by yourself, then you can test it yourself. But I understand that not everyone has enough orbs or are lucky enough to get mythic Heimdallr, or even you're not interested in getting mythic Heimdallr, then you need to wait until I can showcase it with my gameplay videos. Okay, for the third condition, Ether Rays traps trigger before Foresight Snare. So if a foe tries to attack someone with Foresight Snare while triggering an AR trap on the same action, Foresight Snare will still remain active. So don't think that you have discarded both the trap and Foresight Snare with one action. You cannot do that. It's counted separately. So if you step onto a trap while trying to cancel out Foresight Snare, it does not cancel out Foresight Snare. It will only cancel out the trap. Remember that. And lastly, Foresight Snare can only trigger once per phase, and once it is triggered, it will be removed from all your allies until the next turn. More precisely, the next enemy phase. So this one is easier to understand, and meaning that it can only stop one action per enemy phase. So these four are the main points for Foresight Snare that you really need to understand in order to know how I analyze Foresight Snare. So because Foresight Snare has these four conditions, this means that Foresight Snare is not as oppressive or not as OP as some people may think. Like some people think that, oh, Foresight Snare is making people not play the game and it just ends their whole turn. That is not true. Foresight Snare only ends one action per phase, so meaning that you only need to waste one action by maybe someone with mainly someone with Lin Ring, Emblem Lin Ring, or maybe someone with a lot of range but does very little damage. For example, some of your old Astro Mythics, like maybe Ratatosker or maybe Mythic Horde. No, Mythic Horde that does a little bit damage, so I guess that's not good. Not a great example. So maybe one of your dancers, like Mythic Peony. Mythic Peony cannot do any damage unless you give her a whole revamp on her base kit. So if you try to attack with these allies, they normally would not take out any unit. But if you use those units to attack someone with Foresight Snare, they can cancel out the Foresight Snare effect and help your other allies get their real actions and not be affected by this end action effect. But of course, you need to be careful because you cannot save that ally who you wasted that action with any assist skills because of isolation. So this Foresight Snare mainly stops the hit and run teams in Ether Raids, but maybe we can dive a little bit deeper into that after I've discussed Mythic Heimdallr's base kit. So let's talk about Mythic Heimdallr's base kit first before diving into like how Foresight Snare will affect different game modes. And yeah, so let's talk about Mythic Heimdallr's base stats right now. So Mythic Heimdallr is Blue Calf Tome and an Anima reinforcement mythic, and she is a res nuke, and she has good true damage. She has 26 true damage plus 15 special true damage, which is good but not crazy, and she has actually great flat DR for a range type unit because she has 25 flat DR plus 40% unpierceable DR, so she is actually quite tanky for a range unit. And she has slaying, 50% piercing, stat bonuses and debuffs, and has Foresight Snare, of course, and has other debuff effects like the she has for example, the debuff effects that she inflicts include the exposure effect, the discord debuff effect, and stall. So exposure and discord is very common, so it's not crazy anything special. Those two debuff effects are good, of course, but nothing too crazy. But stall is a debuff effect I want to highlight that Mythic Heimdallr inflicts. So stall, what stall does, in case you don't remember, is that it inflicts gravity on any enemy who has movement +1 bonus, has the movement +1 bonus status on that turn. So meaning that if, for example, if any of your allies, for let's just say Brave Male Byleth has movement +1 equipped because has movement +1 because you gave him Emblem Secret Ring, for example. And if Brave Male Byleth has the stall debuff status inflicted and he also has the Emblem Secret Ring, then he will only have one movement every turn because of the stall status. So stall status will make enemies who have the movement +1 bonus status will inflict them with gravity, and this effect is actually very good, and it really stops foes from walking too many spaces if they rely on the movement +1 effect to get an extra movement. So this stall debuff status is actually not very common. It's only, I remember only some older units have it, like for example maybe the OG Loki, if I remember correctly, and also I don't quite remember. There's a stall ploy skill, I don't remember if it's a C skill or something, and it's really not good and no one runs it anymore because it's so bad. It doesn't give any true damage or etc, and it's very, yeah, no one runs stall ploy, I think. And mainly the only one common nowadays that you will see the stall debuff effect is from Dual Summer 4, and Dual Summer 4 is still quite common in competitive Fate game modes like SD, mainly SD, because Dual 4 has a dual button that cleanses all bonus effects from foes within like 5 rows and 5 columns. So basically it just removes all bonus statuses from your enemy team for one turn. And even though it's only, the dual skill is only used once per map, it's still just so good. Removing all bonus statuses from your enemy team is just so good that people are still running Dual Summer 4. So the only notable unit that people are still using now that has this stall debuff effect is Dual Summer 4 mainly. And now that Mythic Heimdallr can inflict the stall debuff effect as well, then yeah, Mythic Heimdallr is a really good unit that inflicts some really good debuff effects. So I just wanted to highlight this debuff effect from Mythic Heimdallr is super good, and you should not underestimate that. And she also has some cooldown -1 at start of turn, some healing, Canto remaining minimum 1, so Canto back that's good, and she denies full swallow up, so she can survive even more in more situations if the foe does not have no follow-up, of course. And she has guard, which is good. It's nothing OP, but it's good. And she also has pre and pulse, etc. So I mean, by etc, I mean she also has the Neo A skills and Neo C skills, but we won't discuss too much about that here. And yeah, And the main gimmick that the main gimmick she has is Foresight Snare. And you need to remember when Foresight Snare is given to your allies. So in Ether raids, it will be given to your allies who are closest to the bottom of the map and are within 3 columns of in front of Mythic Heimdallr. And you can refer to my Fey short if you are not quite sure of what that means, like what being in the bottom of the map and what is like 3 columns centered on Mythic Heimdallr. If you're not so sure about what that means, then you can take a look at my Fey short video. I have a picture on how you can look for who Mythic Heimdallr gives Foresight Snare to in Ether raids. So in other game modes that are not Ether raids, she will give Foresight Snare to the ally who has the highest defense and is the closest to an enemy. So for example, if you have 2 allies, one has 50 defense and one has 10 defense, but the ally who has 10 defense is closer to an enemy, so the ally who has 10 defense will get the Foresight Snare. And the only time where the defense check matters is that if 2 allies have the same distance to an enemy and they are both the closest to an enemy. So for example, 2 of your allies are 2 spaces away from a foe, and that is the closest distance between your allies and a foe. Other allies on your team all are more than 2 spaces away from any foe. So the only time the defense check matters is during that case, where 2 of your allies share the same closest distance between an enemy and themselves. So only then will the Foresight Snare be given to the ally who has a higher defense stat. And if the two allies also have the same defense stat and have the same distance between them and themselves and a foe, then no Foresight Snare will be given, because Foresight Snare can only be given to one ally if it is not in Ether raids. So you be sure and you need to remember that when you use Mythic Heimdallr in SD or maybe Arena. Just remember that. And lastly, I just want to mention that Foresight Snare cannot be given to any ally in the game mode Pawns of Loki. So Pawns of Loki is not affected by Foresight Snare, and really not much reason to run Mythic Heimdallr in Pawns of Loki, other than if you like her, because she's not the greatest nuke and she's a little bit tanky, but there are better units to run in Pawns of Loki if you want to play the mode very competitively. I'm sure Legendary Black Knight would be just a way better choice than Mythic Heimdallr in that mode. So yeah, just something I wanted to add. And yeah, basically that's about it for Mythic Heimdallr's base kit. And now I would dive into... So before I move into any of my tier lists that I've included in the video, I just want to mention a bit about how I predict Foresight Snare will affect game modes like SD and Arena, etc. Not Ether raids. Ether raids, I have a specific tier list for that later in the video, and you can check that out. And so first, let's talk about SD. So Foresight Snare in SD, I predict will be the most oppressive and most OP, because in SD every action counts, and if you need to waste an action, then it really just stops. It really hinders the enemy by a lot, because you need to waste one of the actions. And in SD, if you play SD a lot, you would understand what I'm saying by what I mean by saying that every action counts. Because if one of your actions is stopped, and if you in SD mainly if in SD if you play one move wrongly, you would probably just lose the game most of the time. And yeah, it's really competitive in the most... SD can get really competitive, is what I'm saying, in the highest level of the game, of course. But if you're just a casual player and you don't really play SD competitively, then you don't need to worry about that. But yeah, I'm talking about the highest level. In the highest level of SD, every move really counts, and Mythic Heimdallr, who can brutally stop someone's first action during every turn, is just brutal, and Mythic Heimdallr will definitely be the best. I think she will be the best in SD, not in Foresight. And yeah, because in SD you would notice the huge difference. Not huge difference. It will just be so much more of a hindrance to the enemy team in SD rather than in AR. In AR, you can get the whole phase to yourself, and wasting one action is really not the end of the world. You can just do it with an Emblem Lin, for example. You can waste Emblem Lin's action by sniping whoever, mainly those heroes who have Foresight Snare, and boom, you just waste one action from Emblem Lin, and you can just gale force the whole enemy team with other allies. And because there's so many units who have so many actions in the current meta, like for example Valentine's Edelgard, who has maximum 4 actions if you give her gale force, Brave Sharena, who has 3 actions if you count the action that she gives to an ally, and of course and Twin Sharena, who is basically Brave Sharena 2.0, just the range 1 version of Brave Sharena. And really you can also count Brave Golvig, who recently got a refine, and even though she may not want to keep her private B skill, she can still keep it. She can still do some damage even with her private B skill, and if she keeps her private B skill, she will also get like 3 actions. So really there's so many units who can gale force in the game right now, and yeah, I believe gale force is just a little bit too easy maybe, and every good gale force team would have just a whole bunch of actions, and wasting one action for those gale force teams will really not be an issue. So in Foresight Snare may not be that OP. It's certainly good, of course. Foresight Snare in is 100% good, because you can give Foresight Snare to like 3 allies who are at the bottom of the defense team, and yeah, it's definitely good. But again, I don't think it's the end of the world, and I don't think it has that much of an impact than you can see in Summer the Duels SD. And in other game modes like in in Arena Duels, Arena Assault, Resonance Battles, it probably doesn't really affect Resonance Battles or other minor game modes like maybe Hall of Forms. No, it doesn't really affect those game modes. And yeah, in Resonance Battles you only play the map by yourself, and you can retry as many times as you want, and you're also playing against an NPC, so really Mythic Heimdallr will not affect those game modes. And maybe you're worrying about Arena. So in Arena, of course they can run Mythic Heimdallr to maybe stop your first action, but in Arena only one enemy will have Foresight Snare. So really, if you just attack someone else who doesn't have Foresight Snare, and you would just ignore Foresight Snare. You can just ignore its whole effect after attacking anyone else who doesn't have Foresight Snare. So really, it's really not that crazy even in Arena. So mainly the 2 main game modes that Foresight Snare will show its greatest effect are AR and SD. These 2 game modes are where Mythic Heimdallr would shine the most and just be the most oppressive. So those 2 are her primary game modes where she would be very good or even OP, but in other game modes, yeah, nothing special really. Okay, so now I will talk about subsequent tier lists for Mythic Heimdallr, and first I would start off with by ranking Mythic Heimdallr as an Anima Mythic. So here is my Anima Mythic tier list, and I put, as you can see, I put Mythic Heimdallr in A tier, and other heroes, like for example Mythic Whore in S tier, and Freyr in B tier, and yes, Mythic Heimdallr in B tier. Sorry, my mind went blank when I tried to remember who this bunny girl is. It's Mythic Heimdallr. Sorry, it's Mythic Heimdallr. I totally forgot about her name. And yeah, Mythic Arvo, Mythic Aphos, Mythic Golvik, Mythic Duma I put in C tier, and other Anima mythics that I don't quite remember what they do are just all in F tier because they don't have any special niche and their base kit is just really bad. And either you need to invest super heavily into them for them to actually do something in the defense, or they're just never worth running because their niche is just overshadowed by higher tier units. For example, Mythic Whore. Yeah, Mythic Whore is just no competition between the Anima mythics in F tier, of course. So let's explain a little bit why I rank them in this ranking. So first I'll explain Mythic Whore. Mythic Whore is an S tier mainly because it destroys the safety fence when anyone has gone into combat. So basically it stops hit and run strategies by utilizing the safety fence, and it also stops enemy teams from Lin sniping. So these two game modes, hit and sit, hit and run, are both stopped by Mythic Whore, and mainly the job that she does destroying the safety fence is just crucial to enemy teams right now, because if you don't destroy their safety fence, you're most likely just going to lose your defense. And yeah, Mythic Whore, the only one in Anima who is an Anima mythic and the only one who can destroy the safety fence, it can only be in S tier right now. And then in A tier I rank Mythic Heimdallr because I think Mythic Heimdallr will help an enemy. It will help your defense a lot because of her Foresight Snare bonus status to allies nearest to the bottom of the map, so it can give a maximum of 3 allies the Foresight Snare effect. And if you combine this with Emblem Corrin's terrain, and yeah, just make a lot of ice and a lot of Emblem Corrin's Divine Vein Furt terrain, then suddenly your team would be a lot harder to initiate against. So your enemies would really need to think twice before initiating combat against your team, because they need to think about how to position their allies, how to waste their first action. Do they attack your savior who doesn't have Foresight Snare or not? And they also need to worry about AR traps. And if you position your allies in your defense on your defense team perfectly, then really the enemy who is trying to break through your defense team is going to have a really hard time, and they really need to think about how to approach your defense in order to win against your defense. So yeah, Foresight Snare definitely deserves to make Mythic Heimdallr into A tier in the Anima mythic tier list. And then in B tier I rank Mythic Heimdallr higher than Mythic Freyr, and that is because I like Mythic Heimdallr better than Mythic Freyr, because Mythic Heimdallr gives the Divine Nectar bonus status support 2 spaces, and Mythic Freyr gives the 2 spaces full cleansing at start of turn and removes the undefended status mainly and all other penalty effects, which is good, of course. But really, Mythic Freyr has a really bad base kit, and other than removing all penalty status at start of turn, he doesn't really do much else. But Mythic Heimdallr will give the Divine Nectar status to allies within 2 spaces. And the Divine Nectar status is just so good, because the Divine Nectar status can give your allies 1 extra action after using an assist skill, and it also gives like 10 flat yard, breath of life healing, and it's just so much, it gives so much support to your allies. And I think Mythic Heimdallr is overall has just much more value than Mythic Freyr right now. And I'm not saying Mythic Freyr is bad, but right now there's Mythic Elm, the existence of Mythic Elm, who really just who spreads the undefended status mid-turn. So it really stops Mythic Freyr's niche from being utilized to a great extent, because enemies can still inflict the undefended status using Mythic Elm, and you can't stop mid-turn undefended status by using Mythic Freyr. So really Mythic Freyr is just being lowered to tier B because of the existence of Mythic Elm. Of course, you can put your Omni tanks at the front row of your defense just to not worry about Mythic Elm, because even if Mythic Elm spreads the undefended status, it only spreads to the closest enemies. And if you position your allies such that all of your allies are Omni tanks at the front row, then yeah, Mythic Freyr would still be very good for those types of defense. But really, those types of defense have no threat range, and it's super easy to use Young Camilla or even Harmonized Fur or any other map like unlimited true damage melee nukes, S tier melee nukes, to just break through their defenses by inflicting a lot of debuffs, penalty effects mid-turn. It's really easy to do that. And of course, a lot of modern units also give a lot of bonus support statuses to allies within 2 spaces. So really, those bonus status will only give more true damage to those S tier melee nukes. So really, balled up defenses who rely on like really tanky units are not very good nowadays, because they are just melee nukes who can do unlimited damage. So Mythic Freyr is really not the best Anima Mythic right now, and definitely he is good, so but he's not the best right now, so I will put him in the bottom of B tier. And the other heroes in tier C are self-explanatory, and the other Anima Mythics in tier F are of course not worth running. And here are my Anima Mythic tier list guidelines, basically what I have just explained but put into words. And here are the basic stats and niche references for the Anima Mythics that I've included in this tier list. And I did not include most of them who are in tier F, because they have ignorable niches, or they really just have no niche at all. And yeah, those mythics are not worth running whatsoever, unless they are your favorite unit and that you have invested very heavily into them. But in most cases, you would not invest into them. So really, they are, in most of the times, they are just in F tier. Yeah, and then we will move on to the range nuke tier list. And in the range nuke tier list, Mythic Heimdallr is not exactly the best range nuke right now at release, because Mythic Heimdallr, although she has very good flat DR, she does not have crazy true damage. She does have special true damage, 15. But even after adding 15 to her true damage, she only gets a maximum of 41 true damage. So 41 true damage is definitely great, but it's still lower than those units in A tier, in the top of A tier. For example, Brave Sharina has 47 true damage, if I recall correctly, and Brave Soren has Brave attacks, and also has like 42 true damage or something, just using his base kit. And definitely those two units at the top of A tier are just way better than Mythic Heimdallr in terms of pure damage dealing. And Mythic Heimdallr unfortunately also does not have guaranteed follow-up attacks. So she can and she also has a really bad speed stat. Her speed is like 16ish or something. If she has a speed bane, like a disadvantage in speed, and even if she has a boon in speed, for example, if she has like a boosted stat in speed, she will maximum only 20 something speed, and that is really just not enough. It's not even enough to double some of the most tanky units in the game, like slow armored tanks, for example Legendary Black Knight. 20 something speed is not enough to even double those units, so you can imagine how slow Mythic Heimdallr is. And because she doesn't have the guaranteed follow-ups in her base kit, she is never going to have a follow-up attack. So really, that just makes her nuke worse. And however, I put her above Mythic Whore, and I put her above Emblem Micaiah, Summer Yuri, and Summer Happy. And this is mainly because of her Foresight Snare effect, and because Foresight Snare effect is just so good, and that I have to bump her a little bit, and also because she has a lot of flat DR. She has 25 flat DR plus 40% unpierceable DR for a ranged unit, so she is very tanky. Not very tanky, but she is quite tanky for a ranged unit, and really I have to give her a better ranking than the other heroes in the bottom of the B tiers, because just to highlight that she's a little bit better than those units because of her higher flat DR and her bonus status. The Foresight Snare definitely makes her a little bit better than the other units in tier B, in the bottom of tier B. And then you can take a look at my ranged nuke tier list guidelines here, and you can check the basic stats references for the ranged nukes that I have included in the tier list here for your reference. And that's about it I want to cover in today's analysis video, and here are my final thoughts on the banner. And for my final thoughts, I think Mythic Heimdallr is not crazy OP, and people are just overreacting when they say the game is unplayable now. And here's my hot take. I think they're just mad that they need to use their brains and try to understand how to counter Foresight Snare first before playing AR or other competitive game modes. But this is a Fire Emblem strategy game, and I don't know what do they want. What do they expect? Like, if you're playing AR on the highest level, like if you're playing Vault of Heaven and you don't want to think about how to counter Foresight Snare, like, what? Then why are you in Vault of Heaven? Like, you're playing competitive AR. What do you expect, bro? Like, I don't understand that. But yeah, that's just, I don't understand those people. And yeah, I agree that IS is just really bad at explaining how new skills or new statuses actually work in the game. But saying that the game is unplayable every time IS releases something new is a little bit of an exaggeration, and they're exaggerating too much. And maybe sometimes it is game breaking, like Emblem Corrin's terrain. Yeah, Emblem Corrin's terrain is too crazy, a little bit too crazy, and yeah, that is a little bit too game breaking in a way. But I feel like they just like complaining, to be honest. And like, if the banner is mid, they would also be like, boo, skip please. And I guess I am a little bit like that too if I don't like the characters. But yeah, I really think that they're just exaggerating most of the time. And then yeah, personally, I just want to say that I like Mythic Heimdallr and I want to summon her, and I said so in the previous video too, and therefore I was just really happy when I got her with my free summon, even though I saved some orbs for her. And so I used some of my spirit orbs and tried to get with Halloween Peony, because I love her art, and I got her with just around 35 orbs, which is just crazy lucky. and yeah, I just got really lucky. And so to those who want to get Mythic Heimdallr, regardless of your reasons, I wish you luck with your summons. And for those who do not like her, just skip the banner, it's your choice. And the ninja banner is coming, and maybe Valley will come, Mythic Valley will come next month. So if you prefer those banners, then yeah, you can save your orbs and skip this banner, because the blue color sharing in this banner is really nothing too special. If, for example, Emblem Sigurd, I think most people already have Emblem Sigurd by now, so you do not really need to summon on the blue color for this banner just to get Mythic, just to get Emblem Sigurd. And then Mythic Whore is really not that great of a ranged nuke by herself, and if you want her to nuke better, you need to give her Slime Mirror, and you need to give her Havoc, the Havoc B skill. Her C skill, private C skill, is definitely good, and yeah, basically you need to give her better A skill and B skill. The newest attack res area from Mythic Heimdallr may be good on, maybe even better on Mythic Whore, because Mythic Whore has the special jumping based on allies within like 3 rows of her. I don't remember, 3 rows or 3 columns or something on her. And basically she just has a lot of special jumping, and she triggers her special ice wall pretty easily. So the special type true damage from the attack speed area skill may be good on Mythic Whore. And yeah, Mythic Whore and Mythic Heimdallr are both mainly good in AR, Ephrates, and if you don't play competitive AR, you may not have enough incentive to summon these units if you don't like their design. And yeah, so that's my take on this banner's blue color sharing. And for other color sharings, colorless is also quite good, because it has legendary Sakura, it has Emblem Micaiah, who is also a really good emblem hero. And Emblem Micaiah, I rank her at B tier, if I remember correctly, in the Emblem Hero tier list. You can refer to my Emblem Hero tier list at the Emblem Corin analysis video. I included the Emblem Hero tier list there, and I will do so in future emblem banners as well. And yeah, basically that's about it for this banners, color sharing, etc. So yeah, if you do not like Mythic Heimdallr or Mythic Whore or Emblem Sigurd, then yeah, probably just skip this banner unless you like the heroes on the banner. So if you like any hero on this latest Mythic Heimdallr banner, then sure, just spend orbs and try to get them. But if you don't like them, just skip this banner and try to wait for the ninja banner, which is probably coming next week or so, and maybe just wait for the Mythic Valley banner, which will happen maybe next month. I don't know, but it will come quite soon, I think. And yeah, I just want to say I still like playing Fae, just to see what new characters or skills or statuses will IS release in the future. And now that I'm talking about how I just mentioned how to make Mythic Whore's base kit better, and maybe I would like to talk a little bit about how to make Mythic Heimdallr's kit a little better. But basically, Mythic Heimdallr, I think Mythic Heimdallr already has the best skills she can get, because her C skill gives her piercing, and she's missing piercing in her base kit. And yeah, the only good way to give her piercing is in the C slot. In the A slot, you would waste true damage, etc. And yeah, it's not good. And really, the attack res area gives her the most true damage, I think. You can consider giving her Slime Mirror to give her guaranteed follow-up attacks, and 5 more normal true damage. But I think the attack res area, which gives like about 15 special true damage, is a little bit better than the Slime Mirror skill. But you can choose between the two. And of course, her private B slot is definitely just better because it better than any other B skill in the game right now, because it gives flat DR, and right now no B skill gives flat DR to ranged cavalry tomes right now. So her B skill is definitely a keep, and Ice Wall is definitely super good as well. And her weapon, of course, you would keep her weapon just to keep her Foresight Snare niche. So that's a no-brainer. And yeah, mythic Heimdallr already has the best skills in her base kit, so you do not need to worry. And finally, I'm waiting patiently for the day Lida from Fortune's Weave comes into Fae. So I will keep playing Fae. And for others who don't like the characters which are included to the game, maybe they can take a break from Fae or just stop playing. It's their choice. But for me, I'm definitely waiting. I'm still playing the game just because I need to see Lida. I forgot how to pronounce her name. Lida from Fortune's Weave. The day when she comes into Fae, I need to be there and I need to summon her. That's all. Yeah, thank you so much for watching till the end, and subscribe to see more videos like this. Goodbye.